Well, all right. It's nice to have some familiar faces then already. Let's see here. Okay. So let's see. What else got? Oh, we got Max. We have Kingsley and Grace. Anthony. Ooh, we got lots of people churning out. Awesome. Okay. All right. So we got 2 minutes left here. So if you guys know each other, you want to introduce yourselves, you can say hello. When we get going, I'm going to mute everybody. And then when I ask a question, you guys can put up your hand and I'll ask you individually, just so I can keep track of who's talking. But right now, if you guys want to say hello to each other, we haven't started yet, so you can go right ahead. We've got 2 minutes yet. Make sure I can see everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. Perfect.
And
Okay. Oh, okay. Do we get someone else joining us? Perfect. Hello, Max. Let's see. Hello, Grace. Hello, Kings.
I'm Max, and that's Fiona.
Oh, who's with you?
Fiona, and I'm.
Hello, Fiona. Hi.
You can call me Max.
Good.
Well,
I'll call you Max. You guys are a team of 2. I'll try and remember that. Okay. Oh, who else we got? Ooh, Jacob. Hey. Ooh. We got a really good turnout. All right. Well, I've got some activity planned for us today. Should have enough time. We've got a couple more students than I was expecting, but that's okay. I mean, public speaking doesn't necessarily have to be about having long speeches. Oh, wow. Okay, we got some more. Still got some more people trickling in. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see how this goes. We might need to have a couple of you volunteer. We might not be able to have everybody share their speeches when we get going, but we'll see what we can do. Hello, Stanley. All right. Make sure I can see as many people as possible. Ooh. Okay. Hi. All right. I think so far I can still see everybody. If we get more, I might not be able to see as many. We'll have to see. But we will get started very shortly, guys. Well, it's about 3 o'clock, so we can get started right now. Let's see if anyone else is trickling in. Just a couple more adding. Jacob looking cool with the sunglasses. All right. All right, guys. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to mute everybody. Not that you've been talking over each other. This is just to make sure I can keep track. Okay, now I am sure a lot of you are used to having to put up that little hand icon. If you have a question, you don't have to turn on your guys' cameras. If you do, though, it's helpful for me. A big part of what we do in public speaking is we have to be present. But as you guys know, since a lot of things are online, a lot of those skills can transfer over, right? So before we get started, does anyone have any questions? Any questions at all? Could be a question for me. Could be a question about speech. There's no such thing as a silly question. Anyone at all? I'm looking. I don't see any hands up. Fair enough. Okay. Well, then we can just get started. All right. So first, speech in public. All right. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? I'm sure it is. Sure, we also got a lot of you guys, all different ages. Now, you might be wondering, why is this important? Well, I'll tell you, being able to speak well in public or for a ceremony or for a job, or if you're a teacher, is extremely important because it's the process of communicating. But it's not just communicating, it's communicating clearly. And sometimes it's not just about sharing information. You might be trying to persuade somebody. And persuasion, that's a word I want you guys to really remember, can take all kinds of forms, okay? So I could be trying to persuade you when I teach you a lesson because I'm trying to teach you the proper way to do something. But for me to do that, I have to be able to stand in front of a room and explain that in a clear, concise way. Maybe I'm a lawyer and I want to defend my client. He's innocent. So I need to persuade the judge, or I need to persuade, what do we call them? The jury. I want to say audience. Okay. We have a question. Stanley, let me just unmute you. Go ahead, Stanley.
What about debating?
Debating, absolutely. Absolutely. But I'd say this. What is a debate, right? Oh, do I lose you, Stanley? Okay, that's okay. A debate is two sides actively trying to persuade the other, okay? When you get into, say, an argument, it's not fun necessarily, right? But you have entered into a debate. As soon as you disagree with somebody, you are now on two opposite sides and you're trying to win a point. But this is tricky. And you feel like, no, I'm right. And they say, no, I'm right. Well, now what? If you both think you're right, that either means you're both right or you're both wrong. It can't go both ways, right? Oh, Stanley, yep. Hop back in.
When you debate, somebody says something and you think of something else, so they think of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually it ends up being kind of a point system, right? Whoever can come up with a better point or better facts, right, is going to be more correct. But sometimes you can both be correct with the facts. And it just depends on how you're interpreting them. But it's not necessarily just how you're interpreting them, it's how you're presenting them, okay? And there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. But we can make this a lot simpler too. First, so like Stanley brought up, yes, a debate is always, that's everything in practice. That's pretty much making a game out of trying to persuade. It's a game of public speaking, okay? Because there's also a judge when you have a debate or debate teams, right? Maybe some of you have seen that in class. You've probably seen it on TV. But usually there needs to be someone that we call a moderator, same thing as a judge. And they're the ones that are going to say officially, good point. Or, ooh, that's a good point. But here's the tricky thing. Speeches in public speaking, usually don't have a judge, has an audience, has a bunch of strangers, which can be very scary. Sometimes you might be trying to persuade them. Maybe you're running a campaign. Maybe you're giving a speech or a toast, if anyone knows what a toast is, okay? But you know what? Getting ahead of myself. Let's look at this. Here are a couple different categories that we could have a public speech, okay? Academic, let's start there. This is a little trickier. Can anyone give me an example of what might be an academic speech or an educational speech is another way of thinking about it. Let's see here. We have Cyndaquil. Unmute you. Go ahead. Give me an example. What would be like an academic speech? No? Are you thinking? Yeah? Okay, well, how about this? Well, let's try Philip. Philip, what do you think would be an academic speech?
A graduation speech or something?
Absolutely, absolutely. Graduation, okay. We'll say just grad because I'm going to run out of room. Okay, that would also be ceremonial, right? Okay, so actually, tell you what, I'm going to move that down under ceremonial, and you'll see why in a minute. But you are right. That is a type, okay? That is a type of academic speech. I was thinking something even more simple. Let's see here. Megan.
I think I know why you put the graduation ceremonial. It's because it's like a big ceremony.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. And we can come up with a whole bunch of examples for ceremonial. And that was a great one to lead us off with graduation. And it is attached to academics, right? Because academics is education, it's learning. But can you guys give me still an example? And Megan, since I got you, if you want to try answering this, what would be an academic speech?
Like races.
Sorry?
So like races of math?
Not quite. Tell you what, well, actually, yes, yeah. But you know what? We'll try and give a more relatable example here. What am I doing right now? In fact, what are you all sitting in and watching? Oh, Evelyn, I see you. You are waving your hand. We're gonna move over to Evelyn. Evelyn, what do you think?
Like the teacher speaking to someone or a principal?
Well, sure. Oh, absolutely. What about when a teacher is speaking to a class? What do we call that? Let's go with Grace. Grace, what do we call that?
I think another one for academic is like lecture and teaching.
Yeah, a lecture. That's right. Lecture, or you can think of it as when you're teaching a lesson. Some of you might know it as a lesson. So what I'm doing right now is a form of public speaking. Now, I didn't prepare you guys a speech. Because of my schooling, I'm just familiar with what we call rhetoric. And rhetoric is essentially the art of putting together arguments, whether in an essay or for public speech. It all draws from the same resources. So for me, I'm giving you guys information out of my head, but I am prepared from what I've researched. Now, when we get down to it, the point of the class is to impart certain lessons, and I have to communicate those lessons. So really, anytime you're talking in front of a group of people and communicating, you're engaging in public speech. But the tricky thing, and as a teacher, I get to break the rules a little bit because I can ask you guys questions and you can ask me questions. And we can have what we call a dialogue. And a dialogue means that there are two sides of a conversation, right? But sometimes you can have a teacher, or like myself, sometimes in university, we'll teach what's called a lecture. And in a lecture, I'll just talk for 90 minutes. Students will take notes. There's no conversation. They don't ask me questions. Off you go. Usually they do ask me questions. But that is another version of, say, an academic version of, say, giving a public speech. But I could also be giving, say, a conference. Maybe I wrote a paper on something that is maybe about storytelling, or maybe I wanted to look into, I don't know, Frankenstein and Mary Shelley and where she got her ideas. I write a big paper on that. Well, you submit that to what's called a conference. Other professors read those and get excited and say, okay, come on out. We're going to pay for you to come out, and then you read your conference paper and we'll all discuss it. Okay, now that's more in the university world, but all of this fits into academia, okay? Speech is in academia. Let's switch gears. Oh, before we do, Ethan, looks like you have a question. Ethan, go ahead.
I was gonna say something about I was gonna say for like the academic. I was gonna say announcement.
Absolutely, making an announcement. In fact, most of you are probably far more familiar with when the principal needs to make an announcement on the speaker, all kinds of things. Any one of those, absolutely. That counts as a public speech. That's good. Sounds like you guys get it. You get the idea of what can be an academic speech. Let's go back to ceremonial, okay? What would be some ceremonial speeches? Let's think of some. We already have graduation. That was a great start. Who wants to give me another one? Can anyone else think of what would be a ceremonial speech? Let's see here. Who's got? We got Megan, his hand, Ethan's hand up. Max and sorry, Max Fiona. I thought your hand was up. It's not. All right, Megan, go ahead. Ceremonial.
I think ceremonial goes with like when the judge talks.
Ooh, okay.
And on the news also.
Well, that's a little different, but you're right, because there's always a matter of process or routine or ceremony when it comes to a court hearing. But we have a special category down here for when the judge talks. We got that down in the legal section. So you're right, but you keep jumping ahead of me. But the point is, these things are all kind of connected. right? There's a little bit of ceremony in all of this, okay? But really what we're talking about are specific events and situations where you might bring in different kinds of speech. So I would say for graduate ceremonial speech, you know what would be a really good example? Do you guys know what a bailiff is? Bailiff is that guy, he's usually like the guard that stands in the courtroom and he just kind of escorts people in, escorts them out. What does he do when the judge walks in? All rise. And then everyone gets up. Oh, we'll stand up. All be seated. And then you all sit down. Okay. So that would be ceremonial. Because when the judge comes in, that's not really an argument. He's just coming in. It's a matter of ceremony that guy always has to say that. All rise, all sit down. Okay. Do you have something else you want to add, Megan? I see your hand still up.
After when it's illegal, can I also share?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll come right back to you. Grace, what would you like to suggest for ceremonial?
A birthday.
Oh, absolutely a birthday. Yep. Day. And have that birthday. Right? Because what do you all do when you get together? You sing happy birthday. Singing to a group, that's a form of public speech. Not exactly what we'll focus on, but it all counts. But absolutely, birthdays. Or sometimes what happens when someone's like, they turn 40, and sometimes that's more of a big deal than, say, turning a different age. So people want to commemorate it. So what do? Your parents might do this. They might go rent a restaurant, have a bunch of friends join them. And then there's somebody that always, grabs their cup at one point. I'd like to say a few words. Oh, we've been best friends for so long. Ceremonial, okay? Now, a lot of that, just standing up in front of a group of strangers or people you know, which can actually be equally intimidating. There is a whole bunch of things that you can do to be confident, to feel better, to be prepared for all these situations, okay? But that gets more into, say, the physical side, like your volume, the pace at which you speak, the timbre of your voice, that's to say the character of your voice, sounding confident or not, right? It's not always that impressive of a speech when someone gets up and they're like, oh yeah, I knew this guy for a really long time. He's pretty okay. I don't think that sounds as confident. I don't think I want that guy to give me a speech or talk about me at my birthday. So these are things that we're going to unpack with the class, but that comes with practice. So let's continue on with these though. Ceremonial. Who else do we have? Andrew, your hand is up. Do you have an example for something ceremonial?
Yeah,
Okay.
like a new restaurant is open and some people give ceremony speech.
Absolutely. What do we call that sometimes? A ribbon cutting. You guys ever heard that term? That's usually like they open a restaurant, they're opening up a new hospital. Sometimes they put out a ribbon just as ceremony. Someone has big scissors that are silly that cuts them. And then they give a speech about, oh, I'm glad we built this. Blah, blah, blah. So you're right. Let's say opening, as in opening ceremony. Okay. That's a really good one. That's a really good one. Well, let's see. We'll go Ethan, Grace, and then Megan. Ethan.
I'm just like, how about a theater or like a concert?
Absolutely. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing so-and-so and the Starlight so-so, right? Or, right, that's the person that introduces them. But even when the rock star takes the stage and then they start doing their thing, even that's a form of public speech, right? You can't sing a song unless you're on a stage and you have absolute control of volume and your lyrics. All these things come into play. But yes, absolutely. So we could say concert. Why not? Okay, so we can move on pretty quick. Let's see. Oh, just Megan. Megan, do you still have something you want to add?
Like for ceremonial, I think also a show is one.
A show? Like a play or something like that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll go a show. Got a show. And what happens at the end of a show? Usually all the actors come out on the stage and then someone says, ladies and gentlemen, the actors of tonight's play, playing the role of Romeo, role of Juliet, right? All of that, again, we're back into public speech. So, I mean, the real trick is you can't escape public speech. You know, we're all gonna have to deal with it. But there are tricks and different things that you can do to learn to be confident with it and to make a good argument. And that's another word I want you guys to really remember. So we have persuasion and we have argument. But here's what I want you guys to also think about. Argument, when we talk about in class, does not mean disagreement. Usually when you hear the word argument, that's what we assume, right? Like, okay, I had an argument with my mom. That means you guys disagreed about something. But an argument, technically the definition just means making a point for something. So even when you get up and give a speech at a birthday, and let's say it's Megan's birthday. Megan's great. Happy birthday, Megan. I've known Megan for at least 15 minutes. She's solid. Okay. So that still is going to count as a speech. That kind of factors in. Oh, what we got going on? Okay. Sorry. So if it was a show and I come out and I'm introducing everybody, again, we're back into public speech side. Megan, let's go back to the legal examples. I think you had one that you wanted to bring up.
I was saying, like when the judge is talking.
Yeah. Well, the judge.
I don't know what is the name.
Well, the judge gives his judgment, which we usually call a verdict, right? When he gives the verdict, he has to address everybody. So the judge, right? We'll just say judge. All right, but this is very important. What do lawyers do? When they go into a courtroom, usually there's two sides. One that's for something, one that's against something. And then what do? They present their arguments. That's what they call it, at least in the legal world. Sometimes we hear them as saying they present their case, but technically it's presenting an argument. Ethan, do you have something you want to add?
How about like the local news?
Local news. That absolutely. I think we can put that under professional. You guys are so good. You always start jumping ahead on me. But again, that's because all this stuff is connected. Yes, local news. We're going to put them under a professional side because that is where it is someone's job to literally tell you things. They could be telling you anything. And the things they're telling you that day are the facts of the day. It is imperative that when you turn on a news station and you see the person reading you news, you have to trust that person. If you don't, what's the point? This is a very good point, actually, I'd like to wrap up to really quickly. There's a very important aspect to public speaking that's visual, okay? Body language, confidence, not jumping around too much. All of this stuff communicates confidence and what we'd say trust in your audience. So if I'm a news anchor, it's a little bit different if let's see. I guess I don't look all that nice at the moment, but me standing here, proper. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the news. Something else happened. It was Megan's birthday, but it wasn't really her birthday. Okay. That's what we're used to when it comes down to, say, news anchors. But what you're not going to trust is a news anchor whose glasses are on sideways and his hair's all messy. And he's just like, I'm pretty sure no spaceships landed today. Thank you for joining me on the news. Okay. That is not someone that we're going to be confident in. Now, I know that's just a silly example. Okay. But when it comes down to it, how you hold yourself, looking at the camera, or not the camera, but the audience, okay? All this is going to communicate why you need to trust somebody or why you should believe anything I'm telling you, okay? You guys need to work on that for yourselves because in your own lives, you're going to do it through things like class presentations. You're going to do it in job interviews, but not always just job interviews. Some of you might have to try out for a team. And sometimes trying out for a team, there's also kind of a spoken component, or maybe you guys decide you want to apply for scholarships one day. I hope you do, right? All of this comes back down to it. And I'm going to tell you why. When it comes down to the processes of giving a speech, they all follow a very similar 6-point step, process. I guess I like that word, process. Okay. Every time you give a speech, it has to have an introduction. Then it has to have some background information because the audience needs to know what you're talking about. Then you need to situate it, tell them why it's relevant. Then you need to give them proof. Then you need to refute any argument that's against you. You need to acknowledge the other side. And then you have to wrap it up. What I just told you guys is a 6-point process that's about roughly 2,300 years old. And it was actually invented by the Greeks. And not only do we derive scientific method from this point system, but it's where we get our legal system from. It's where we get our process of writing essays. Everything you do in the written form started off in a spoken form. And for a long time, we didn't have the written word. So these guys 2,300 years ago were literally talking and talking and talking, and then someone else listening and listening, and then remembering and memorizing it. And then they'd talk to a group and they'd share that. And they slowly started building a methodology through sharing their stories and their best ideas, and created a system of how to speak in public. And eventually that led to how do you write an essay? And if you can speak well, you can probably write well. And if you can write well, you can do things like draft grants. You can write laws. You can write books, all the above, okay? But I'm getting ahead of myself, and it all comes down to just starting off simple, public speaking. Philip, you have a question? Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe legal could be like a prime minister giving a speech or something.
You're absolutely. In fact, I think we can probably agree. I don't even have enough categories on here. So with legal, professional, we could have an entire section just for government, right? We could have the gov. And under the government, you have prime ministers, you've got ministers, you've got secretaries of departments, you've got, actually got a law. We call that very bureaucratic. Absolutely. So I guess here's the thing. You can't pick something and not be talking about public speech, okay? This all got a little messy, so I apologize for that. But the point being, ceremonial, legal, professional. All right. Well, it sounds like you guys got a good idea of that. So I'm just going to erase that. You guys have any questions before I move on? No? I'm not seeing any hands. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. So, as I just explained, all of this comes from very old tradition. And a part of what the classes will be based around is, well, you guys will have to work and practice your presentation skills. Now, I'm not sure how big the classes would be, so it depends on how we can organize it, but the idea will be you have to practice. Now, I mentioned a couple of different things that we use for measuring physically speaking, okay? So, I mean, there's not just what you say, the content, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no point in saying something in public unless you have something to say. So that's the first part. You need something to talk about. Now, once you decide that it's a ceremonial speech or it's a legal speech or it's professional, what have you, then it comes down to, all right, well, how do I actually do that? Okay, so number one, this is all going to be relating to voice, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about the voice side of things. When it comes to voice, and say voice projecting, okay? All right. There are 5 things I want you guys to consider. Number one, there is, and this is kind of a weird word. It's French. It comes from French. Not timbre. We actually pronounce it as timbre, but that's because I think the French word is timbre. But does anyone know what that is? You guys ever heard that before? I don't see any hands. No hands. Max is shaking his head. He says, no, I don't know that one. Well, that is totally okay, guys. Think of it as the quality of your voice, okay? How strong is a voice? Is it weak? So if I'm whispering at you, okay, this is a whispery timbre. If I'm yelling at you, it's angry. Okay, it's the character. But what you want to generally focus in on, okay, is emotion, okay? If you're giving, say, let me ask you this. Who can give me an example of a sad speech? What is definitely a sad kind of speech? Can anyone think of one? Oh, we got some. Let's go. You know, oh, Shania. We had not seen Shania yet. Shania.
Hello, my name is Shania,
Hi.
and I'm really sad today.
Are you sad today? Oh, well, I wish we didn't have to have a speech for sad then. Well, can you give me an example, Shania, of what would be a sad speech? Is that it? Just saying, I'm sad? Oh, I muted you.
Yes.
Okay, well, absolutely it would be. That would literally be, sorry, that I thought you were telling me you were sad, but no, you're right. I understand. What you're saying is that a literal speech, a sad speech would be like, ladies and gentlemen, I am sad. You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm thinking more of what would be an example or a situation where it calls for a sad speech. I'll be more specific. So let's go. Devin, you had your hand up there too before. Devin?
Are you looking for a sad speech?
What would be an example of a sad speech?
Somewhere we're talking and then I don't know, saying low, your voice is really low.
Well, that's true. Okay, you can tell someone is giving you a sad speech because of the timbre and their voice gets sad. But I'm still thinking of a situation or an event where you actually would have to like ask someone formally to give a sad speech. Let's go with Stanley. Stanley.
When somebody dies and they say, let's pay our respects to whoever died.
That's right. Do you know what that's called? That kind of speech?
A funeral?
Well, it's at a funeral, and the word is a eulogy. Eulogy. It's a weird one. Okay. A eulogy is when someone has already passed away, and that is the official speech we give about them. Funerals tend to have them. Hopefully you guys haven't had to been to too many funerals, but they're not always sad. Sometimes we have a grandma or a grandpa or both that pass away, and a sad speech can have a lot of really great memories in it, and that's what makes it sad. So it depends on the occasion, but that is a ceremonial speech where it wouldn't come in and be appropriate to be really silly and dropping jokes. I guess it depends on who passed away. For the most part, it's respectful. And the most part, it understands that we're sad and we miss this person. So you have to write something accordingly. Ethan, did you have something you wanted to add?
Can I give an example of a sad speech?
Sure.
Like I have bad news today. I went outside and then I went back inside and then my pants got all wet and I'm really sad because these were my new pants.
Oh no. And you know what, Ethan, just by sharing that story right now, we have about, well, how many of us are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, close around 30. You just gave a public speech. And if that story was true, you did exactly that. You just gave us a sad story. So every time any one of you is talking within this class right now, because of the number of people, good news, you're speaking in public. Okay. Now that becomes tricky because then you realize it and you're like, uh-oh, wait, is it? Well, now I don't know what to say. And that's okay. There's all kinds of different forms. The thing to do is to get used to it and get comfortable with it. There's nothing we can do. As a teacher, everything I do is public speaking. It's very much how I get paid. And there's so many little tricks to this. And I grew up with a lot of people who are shy or people in business that, just didn't feel confident with either a proposal. And half the time it's because people are uncomfortable presenting themselves in front of others. But if you can get over that hurdle, it helps out with a lot of aspects of life. I mean, beyond education, within education, but that's because it all draws from a very similar and very old practice. And that's what I was telling you guys about, the Greeks 2,300 years ago. Okay, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Timbre, quality of your voice. Okay, so we talked about that. It's how you're going to be able to tell it's sad, happy. Inflection. This is something else that's important. Inflection. Okay. Inflection, let's see. Here's a way to look at this. Think of timbre as character. Okay. That's the character of your voice. Is it kind of crackly, whispery, loud? Timbre, okay. That but not volume. Volume means volume. Timbre is still the quality, the character, okay? Is it kind of shaky and I'm self-conscious? Timbre, okay? Or do I know what I'm talking about? Confidence, timbre. Inflection, okay, that is a little tricky. I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm going to give you, when I ask you a question, you can tell I'm asking you a question because of the inflection in my voice. So even if you didn't really listen to the words, right? Can anybody tell me the capital of France? The capital of France? So my voice is going up at the end. Oh, Megan, do you have something you want to say?
The capital of France is Paris.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Sorry, I just was using that as an example. But 100%, capital of France is Paris. And if, well, okay, now how about this, Megan, while I have you on the here with me? How about you ask me a question? Any question you want at all.
I don't know.
Okay, that's all right. You can ask me something that's in the room here. Ask me anything you want.
How old are you?
Okay, how old are you? So you kind of went down with the inflection at the end, and that's okay. So you know the kind of meant? Sounds like you were a little bit self-conscious about asking me how old I am, and that's okay. I'm 34. Thank you for asking.
Oh.
All that I was trying to put you on the spot for, and thank you for letting me do that, is to show how an inflection can go up or it can go down. So when she wanted to ask me about my age, she was like, oh, I don't want to offend him. Maybe he's really old. Maybe I am. Maybe I am old to you guys, right? When I was asking about France, I was asking about a question that I knew the answer to, and I was trying to get you guys. So I'm like, what is the answer of France? Okay. So that is what we call inflection. It's the tone going up and down in your voice, okay? It's going up and down, and it depends on if I give you an exclamation like ouch, okay, that is a high inflection on that. If I stub my toe and I'm just being really sad about it, I'm like, ooh, ooh, that's a low inflection. It communicates different things. Okay, we won't spend too much more time on that, but it's something that you should develop an ear for, and I bet a lot of you do, whether you realize it or not. Okay, so for inflection, we're just going to put this kind of sound wave. Ooh, okay, that's my little sound wave. Number 3, something else you always want to think about, pacing. The pace. There is a pace. There's a couple of things I can do to teach a class. Oh, I see a hand up. Shania, go ahead.
My heart's pacing after I went on a walk.
Mm-hmm. And what does that sound like? If it's pacing, what is that?
Ba, 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 like it's like a drum beating.
Like a drum beat, right? Or like a metronome. Tick,
Yes.
tick, tick. That's right. There needs to be a pace. Now, when someone's talking, like the way I'm talking right now, I'm kind of picking up and slowing down and picking up and slowing down. And you guys are trying to be like, okay, I'm just trying to hold your attention. But I will generally slow down when something is important. And I'll give you guys an example. So far, I mentioned 2 words that I wanted you guys to remember. I said them at random different times. And I said, okay, but I want you to remember this word. And then later I said, and remember this one. We're going to keep coming back to it. Can anyone tell me what either of those words were? I won't feel bad if none of you remember, but can someone, let's see here. Oh, Ethan and Megan still have a hand. Let's try Ethan and Megan. Okay, Ethan, do you know?
Professional.
Professional? No, it wasn't professional, but yeah, I did mention professional. You're so close. Persuasion. I said persuasion a bunch of times, okay? Obviously, I should slow it down and say it slower and emphasize it. Of course, there is a trick. Usually for us teachers, when something's very important, we say it 3 times. It's just kind of ingrained. So no one should feel bad if they did not remember those words that I just mentioned, okay? But persuasion, And the other one was argument. But point in fact, oh, Megan, do you have something you want to add?
The part when you repeat 3 times, it also happens like in the announcements. Like they'll say like somebody, please go to the office. Somebody, please go to the office.
Absolutely, right? Hit it home, hit it home, hit it home. It's not a coincidence that they're saying it 3 times. That's right. A lot of this, again, comes back to where we get rhetoric from. It's a funny word. And this is going back to the Greeks. So again, all this comes from the same place. Okay, but so with pace can be a little tricky. It's the momentum, the stop and go of your questions. No, sorry. Okay, I thought we had a question every time. So when it comes down to your pace, here's something with a very quick pace. Actually, before I do, can anyone give me an example of what might be a really fast-paced speech? Okay, what's an example of a fast-paced anything when you're talking? Ethan, do you have an example?
Like when saying something that's about to happen, like quickly, go to the basement. There's a tornado coming.
Absolutely. Time is of the essence. Sure. That's a good one. Oh, Shania.
Quickly, I need to go.
Yeah, absolutely right. Immediacy. Okay, I'm going to give you guys an example that is not necessarily because there's danger, but because time is of the essence. Oh, Megan, do you have one? We have Megan and Maga.
Like the date, like somebody telling the time or date.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, usually when someone asks the date or when you call to check the time, usually it's actually pretty slow. It's a regular measured pace. Well, they'll be like, the time will be 12:52 at the beep. Beep. So that's not really fast or slow. It's just a measured pace. But that one is about time, so technically true. Maga, you had an example? Where you got?
Yes.
Yeah? What's an example of a really fast-paced speech?
Quickly, drive the car because I'm late for school.
Absolutely. I'm looking for a kind of event where you would actually have to hire somebody to do this. Here, we'll see Devin. That's a good one though, Maga. I like that one. That was a good example. Devin? Hi, Devin.
Fast-paced.
What is a fast-paced event where we need someone to talk really fast?
Quickly, go to your room. There's a monster.
Absolutely.
Or you have a class right now.
Okay, sure, right. Giving announcements. I'll give you guys the example I was thinking of. What kind of a person am I when I'm like, let's see here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next bid is for this book. It is a fine value. It's blue. It is 500 years old, ancient, and the bidding will start at $5. $5. I have $5. That's $6. $6. This guy says $7. The man with the hat. Man with the hat says he has $9. $9. Sold for $10 and a funny face. What am I doing? What is that? What kind of speech was that? You guys, Stanley, go ahead.
You were talking super fast.
I was. Do you know what I was doing?
Telling them when to read the book.
Oh, no, that's okay. Close. Not quite. They were, oh, 1 second, buddy. We've got Shania.
Like your voice is pacing very fast.
I am. It's going really fast. If you had to guess, though, what's my job? Who am I? What am I trying to be? I'm trying to be a certain kind of person. Let's see here. Oh, we got a bunch of hands. Philip. Oh, you moved. Philip, go ahead.
I think it's called like an auctioneer or something.
Yeah, auctioneer. Yes, I'm an auctioneer. That is, you can have these for art houses. You can have them. Cattle ranchers deal with this all the time. They come in with their cowboy, whatever. They bring in all their cows and then they sell them off to different people because they're going to use them for milk. They're going to use them for beef. They're going to use them for whatever, right? And there's a guy at the front and he's in charge of who's bidding. And you have to be fast because everyone's doing it quick. They want to get in, they want to get out. They have other options to do. So that requires really fast-paced speech. Another example is sometimes at the end of those, like you might be watching TV and all of a sudden a video starts and there's like a really happy old couple and it turns out there's some arthritis medicine that exists and they're like, arthritis medicine is great, it's for you and it's good. And at the end of the commercial, it's like, please be careful, it has a side effects, your head might explode, right? It always has these extra boo, 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 little side effect bits come at the end. And that's a little different because that's an advertisement and that's something to watch for, to be able to recognize it. Because a lot of time when something is rapid fire, fast paced, they're actually trying to sneak something past you. An auctioneer isn't trying to sneak anything past you. He's trying to just keep up with the group and make sure everyone's paying fairly. That's what an auctioneer does. But when someone is trying to sell you something, they're like, oh, you want this man? Yeah, come on, it's got great. It's got all the deals. Oh, don't think about it, just buy, right? That's bad. They're kind of rushing you through something. You're not going to trust someone that's talking to you like that. So your pace is important, okay? Politicians know this. Businessmen know this. Con artists, unfortunately, know this. Pace, right? So when I want to make a point with you guys, if I'm giving you a list, maybe I'll go a little bit faster. Like, all right, this class is going to have a whole lot of things. We're going to have some fun first and foremost. There is going to be some writing. We're going to have some listening. We're going to have some presenting. But at the end of the day, we're all friends. I don't know. So I was just trying to give you a list really fast. But when I'm trying to tell you a lesson, and I want you to really think about the next word I say, I slow down the space between the words. Now, speeches can be like this. They go fast, and they're slow, or they go back and forth, back and forth. But it's up to you at what point in your speech you go fast or you go slow. And that's how an audience, like myself or like you guys, can tell where to really pay attention. No one can pay attention to someone's speech 100% for the entire time they're talking. That's why it's important that there are little signifiers. And our brains, we're watching for them anyway. But it's better to know how they work or how we measure them. So we have two more. This one should be a lot easier for you. Volume. Volume matters, one, just so people can hear you. Oh, do we have some questions? 1 second. Okay, Megan, Devin, Shania. Go ahead, Megan.
Like for the pace, it's like when you go like when you go talk very slow, you go like, oh, I'm tired, like that.
That's right. And what happens when someone talks really tired? What can happen to the people listening?
Like they could sound like they don't really have a lot of energy in their voice.
And you know what happens a lot of time? And this is something that you guys should all really remember. The energy that the speaker has generally transfers to the audience. So I'm sure you have all had a couple teachers that we all have were a little boring. Maybe the lessons were good and the information was great, but they come into class and say, good morning. Let's get started. I forgot the chalk. I'll be back. Right? Like if that was a cartoon, I think they're a turtle. I'm picturing a turtle. So if you have them going that slow, what do you do as a student? If it's 8 in the morning, you're probably trying not to fall asleep yourself. That's not going to help you. But that teacher comes in, bam, we got some stuff. We're going to do some learning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Okay, but that's because they're reading you as the audience. Devin, did you have a question or something you wanted to say? Go ahead, buddy.
2 things. I know a slow pace that I usually do. I usually fall asleep and I don't want to I say, I'm tired.
Exactly, right? And that gets infectious. One kid gets tired and then the next guy gets tired. And then we're all tired. Shania, you have something you want to add?
Like when your volume turns up of your voice, you're like, hey!
Yeah, loud volume.
Like when you're angry or happy, and then when you're sad or scared, you're like,
Yeah, yeah. Volume in combination with everything else tells us so much about the speaker. Myself, I'm actually just kind of a loud person anyway. So you might have guessed that. I don't know what it is. It's either my chest or my mouth or who knows, but I'm naturally louder. So when it comes down to standing up and talking, that doesn't scare me as much. But for some people, literally because of how they're shaped, it takes more to make more noise. So it's very important to be able to raise your own volume. But the other thing is so that you don't sound scared or self-conscious about what you're saying, right? And that's important because sometimes it's okay. No, actually, it's okay to be self-conscious. But when you're giving a speech, if you're the CEO of a company, if you have a message that you are paid, that you have to give, and it has to be verbatim, that is where you don't want to falter. That is where you want to try and maintain that confidence, and volume is going to really matter. Yeah, Devin's got it. You want something? Okay, so we have volume, pace, inflection, timbre. There's one more that I want to bring up with you guys, and this is important. It's kind of last one on there. The form that a speech has taken. Okay, this one's not as tricky. This means that it could be a speech, regular spoken, or it could be a song. It could be a poem. Technically, it could be interpretive dance. Probably not. Form, okay? That has to do with the structure. How are you presenting it? What is the thing? Is this because you're upset and you're debating something and you're attacking it? You want to attack the idea? Or is it something you really believe in and you want to defend it? I want to defend my idea. The form it's going to take. Let's see here. Do you guys have a question? Megan, do you have a question?
Can I say something for volume? Like when you're very sad and when your emotion very weak and stuff, or soft, you might talk very like quiet. And when your emotion very strong, you can maybe talk like you're normal.
Absolutely. Strength, confidence, right? These things kind of overlap. And sometimes they're kind of a synonym for each other. Volume indicates that. Pace, I mean, you have what is the character. We have, is it question? Is it the emotion? Has it been researched? Is it moving really fast? Is it sneaking something past? Is it loud? Is it angry? Is it quiet? Is it level? Really, everything in here is kind of a meter. And what you want is to keep it all level in the middle as best you can. You don't want something to be too emotional. You don't want something to be too loud, right? But you want it to have weight. You want it to have what we call gravitas. And we want you to have what we call authority. And you want to have authority on whatever you're speaking. And when people don't know you, there's no other way to convince them other than to start talking to them. But with the moment you start talking, that's when you start communicating all these little nuances and all these little things. Okay, so we've got timbre, the inflection, the pace, the volume, the form. Now, my original plan was I was going to do a writing exercise where everyone could practice doing a presentation, but there's too many of us, so we'll have to leave that for the actual class if you guys think it's something that you're going to enjoy. But what we'll also talk about is a little bit about how this is taught, okay? So what we actually use, or what I've typically used, and I was taught this as well, is a really wacky word. I'm just trying to bring it up. We call it the progymnasmata. Progymnasmata. I'm going to write on the board. There's no reason you guys would have heard of this word. If you did, I'm really impressed. But it's a very special process. Okay? And I'll tell you this. Where'd my marker go? Okay. You don't have to write this down. Progymnasmata. Okay. All right, and that is Latin. Latin is not a language we use anymore, but that is Latin. So, progymnasmata. This is something that boys and girls, same age as you, literally thousands of years ago, this is how they learned to become good, what they call orators. And an orator is someone who can speak well. So like a public speech giver, right? We've already talked about all the different facets that this actually applies to. So when someone wanted to go and be a lawyer, they had to take this class. When someone wanted to go and be a teacher, they had to take this class, okay? You can see where this is going. This was their education system, and they didn't have the written word, so they had to do it all by learning and listening. So with this, there's actually 14 steps, and we'll do one step every week. Sometimes we can do 2 in 1 week because they're a little bit different. But what we're going to start off with in class 1 is you got to write your own fable. Does anyone know what a fable is? Can someone tell me what a fable is? No? Ethan, I saw your, oh, Ethan. No, that's a no for Megan. Ethan, go ahead.
It's like a story.
It is. But there's an extra step to that. What does a fable usually do?
Entertain people.
Absolutely. Stories are supposed to entertain, but a fable has a very specific purpose, a very specific definition. Do you want to take another guess? It's okay if you don't know. You're very close. You're already very close. Here, let's see, Henry.
It teaches you a lesson.
Yeah, that's right. It imparts a lesson. I bet you who else? Someone else had their hand up, and I bet you that's what they were going to say. That's right. It imparts a lesson. Now, this is really important because step 1 is writing your own fable. The final step is writing your own argument essay. Now, that's going to sound really intimidating, but there are so many steps in between that you slowly build to it. And by the time you get to that final step, it makes sense that it's not intimidating. But the first thing that we would do is you would have to come up with your own fable. Now, a fable were made famous from a guy named Aesop. Again, we're going back to the days of the Greek. Aesop's fables were always lessons about life, but we always learned them from animals, right? They were always animals in the story, and they always had something really basic, and that told us a story. There is one about the lion and the golden fleece. He decides one day it's too hot, so he takes off his fur and goes for a swim. Meanwhile, a donkey comes along, puts on the lion's coat, and then goes around terrorizing everyone because they think he's the lion, okay? Now, what's the lesson there? Well, don't pretend to be things you're not and to guard what's yours. It's an old story. We'll use better examples. There are so many better fables, but the idea is to be able to take a lesson. You decide the lesson you want to impart. Maybe it's about don't steal, or maybe it's about being good with your money or being nice to people. So you decide your lesson, but then you're going to have to come up with some animal characters that are going to act it out. And that becomes your fable. And that becomes your first step in becoming a better speech giver. I know it sounds kind of disconnected, but it's not. You have to think about a debate, an argument. You're making an argument for a lesson, and you're packaging it up in a narrative, in a story fable, okay? This is the very simplest, most boiled down version of convincing someone something. Except when you impart a lesson, usually we already agree with what it is. If you say to me, hey, don't swear, I'll be like, you're right, I agree. But if you can tell me a story with little animals acting it out, you've created a fable. And not only are you taking the first step becoming an author, but you're also becoming just a better, what we call rhetoricianist. And that is something that even people in university don't study. At least not always. All right, so that's what we would be looking at with the first class. We're just about done, guys, about 4 minutes left. You've all been great. Do you guys have any questions for me before we let you go? Sherry, oh, there, 1 second, go ahead.
What does this term progymnasmata mean?
Progymnasmata is actually just the name of the 14 steps. I don't actually know what the word means or what its origin is. All I know is that they call these 14 steps, this kind of learning, the progymnasmata. It's just its name. I can't think of a good example or a modern example of this. I suppose it'd actually be kind of like going and getting your LSATs. I don't know. I think that's for law, but that would also be something that stands for something. So it's just the name of what is a 14-point series test, and they call it the Brogymnasmata. I'm sorry I can't be more helpful. I'll look into it. I'll see if I can find what the actual origin of that word is for you. Was there any other hands? Any other questions? I thought I saw some, or they probably are all asking me the same thing. Progymnasmata. It probably is a word that breaks into about 3 or 4 and it has a deeper meaning. I'll see what I can find. Philip, go ahead.
Are you a teacher? And if so, how long have you been teaching?
Hi, I am a teacher. Probably about 4 years or so. I've been teaching at university. This is my, I've been doing it for 1.5 years at the university level, and then working with prep schools and with younger grades, that'd be for about the first 3 years. So kind of across the board, but I mostly enjoy working with younger students and university students. That's my favorite. Is that all you have? Oh, what do we got? We have some big faces. Sherry, go ahead.
Will there be another class after this, like for older grade or no?
Well, it depends on what, this was kind of a test class where I just kind of show you what we'll be looking at, gives your teacher, your parents an idea as well. I've also got a little form that I'll email out, so it lets them let them know what kind of the class is broken down into. And then it's really just up to, I think, if you want to enroll. But it's a class we're looking at offering. I'd be happy to have you. In fact, all of you guys have been really great at participating. And I know that a lot of this is going to be new terms or new concepts, but they're also concepts that overlap with so many facets of life and different subjects that it actually becomes clear fairly quickly. It seems complicated, but it's just because it's a whole bunch of new terms and it sounds like I'm describing how to build a stereo. But the truth is, this is just the method of how we talk and how to best convince people and how to have authority and confidence in whatever you're writing or whatever you're saying. Okay. Well, I think I can let you guys go. We got people, Fiona and Max, doing a dance at the end. Thank you, Max. All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If not, you can take off. And thank you. Thanks for joining us. See you, Devin. Nice seeing you again, buddy. See you, Henry. See you guys. All right. Good stuff. Okay. If anyone has any last minute questions, I'll hang out here until everyone's gone. See ya. See you guys.